Hello, U.S. soccer fans. Welcome to this episode of U.S. Soccer Blog, your source for everything U.S. soccer. I'm your host, Salvatore. This is my brother, Nihal. And first off, I'd like to talk about the U20 men's national team. They won the NTC Invitational on goal differential with a 0-0 draw versus Australia. Anything you'd like to say about the tournament?
Well, they beat Chile in the first match 2-1 after being down 1-0. And then they beat Bermuda 4-0 with mostly a second team in that game, actually. We watched the last game. They looked pretty good. Shout out to the American Outlaws, too, for coming out to the game. They sounded great. But yeah, I mean, they looked really good in the tournament. They definitely deserved to win the last game. Tommy Thompson of the San Jose Earthquakes looked really good. He's their first homegrown player, so hopefully he'll get some MLS action pretty soon. Romain Gall looked good. Lyndon Gooch from Sunderland looked really good. We'll talk about him some more a little bit later. He had 3 shots go off the post. I think we had 5 shots go off the post. We really dominated the game. Tommy Thompson had an absolutely beautiful run towards the end of the game where he should have scored, but didn't. It was a good save by the goalkeeper. But yeah, it was a great tournament. Good for the U.S. men's national team, under 20 men's national team, and Tab Ramos. Of course, they have qualifying in January, and then they have the under 20 the men's under 20 World Cup in New Zealand next summer. So it's a big time for these players. We have a lot of players that could be in the mix in the future, that should be in the mix. Fernando Arce Jr., Fernando Arce's son, who's a Mexican national, chose to play for the U.S. He was on this team. There's a great article on AmericanSoccerNow.com where Brian Sciarra interviews Fernando Arce Jr., so go check that out. Also, Paul Arriola of Tijuana, Arce Jr.'s teammate in Tijuana, is another player that I really like. He's a great player. And just throughout the team, we have a lot of good players, and like I've said before, it's a good time to be a U.S. soccer fan. We should be optimistic with the future.
Yeah.
And one more thing. The U.S. under 17 men's national team has 2 tournaments coming up, so we'll be on the lookout for them.
In terms of MLS action this week, the LA Galaxy beat New England Revolution 5-1. Zardes had 2 goals, a young American.
Yep, he plays on the wing, and he also plays striker. This game was midweek last week, not this weekend. But he was fantastic in that game. He had that one near post shot that was great. Hopefully he can develop further and develop into a really good winger or /striker. He's tall, fast, athletic, and he just gets better and better every game. And he's been clinical this year. After last year, I think he had the most shots on LA, and his conversion rate was so low. This year, his conversion rate is well above 50%. So it's really exciting to see him develop the way he is, and hopefully that development can continue. And on the weekend, LA played Sporting Kansas City. They lost 2-1. Really, Benny Feilhaber was fantastic once again. Had a glorious free kick that went in. He also had a goal midweek against Columbus in the 93rd minute. A great ball, great shot, probably 22, 23 yards out. It'll be interesting to see if he's in the Gold Cup mix. It's not out of the realms of possibilities. He could definitely be there next summer, so it'll be interesting.
Yeah. Also, in the MLS results, RSL played Vancouver. It was a 1-1 draw. Beckerman had an assist.
Yeah, he had an assist on the equalizer late in the game. Great job picking out Joao Plata, and a great finish by him. On the heels of a terrible penalty call, which Vancouver was gifted, and they scored a goal. A lot of bad penalties this year,
including the friendly Sounders versus.
Right. Yeah. Sounders played Tottenham Hotspur, and they drew 3-3. It was nice to see that. Xander Bailey, if you don't know about him, go check that out. It's all over sports news. But I was gonna say, MLS has had a lot of penalties this year. This year, only about halfway through the season, they've had more or the same amount of penalty kicks as 2011, 2012, and 2013 in their full seasons. So there have been a lot of penalty kicks. Hopefully there are less penalties. But
speaking of penalties, In the Dynamo versus Toronto game, Michael Bradley missed a penalty.
Right, that game ended 2-2. Will Bruin had a goal. Hopefully he can get back into the U.S., into Jurgen's radar, get back onto Jurgen's radar. Michael Bradley missed a penalty. That was, he actually missed it. He missed it off. He sent the goalkeeper the wrong way. He missed it off the post. So I still don't know who's going to take our penalties for the men's national team. It might be Bradley. I think Josie Altidore probably is our best bet. Yeah.
I actually didn't see this game, but Bradley, he's been. Do you think this? How long do you think this down streak's gonna last for him? Because obviously.
Well, I think actually he had a pretty good game.
Okay.
Yeah, he had a pretty good game. He had some beautiful chip through balls, and I think he just looks so much comfortable in that deeper lying midfield position. Like he would come back, he would survey the field and pick out Gilberto and pick out Luke Moore and Defoe and these players going forward. Absolutely beautiful passes. So he definitely needs to go back into that more defensive midfield and hopefully let someone else step into that central attacking midfield role, a more creative role for the men's national team.
Yeah. In the United versus Chivas game,
DC United.
Eddie Johnson scored in a 3-1
victory over Chivas USA. So yeah, Eddie Johnson scored off a penalty kick. And then Luis Silva and Perry Kitchen also scored. So that's 3 U.S. players. Luis Silva, a young U.S. player that I really like. He's a perfect example of a number 10. Good creator. Has scored, I think, 6 goals now. Could be wrong. 6 goals this season. He can play forward. He can play under the striker. He can play out wide. And then Perry Kitchen's fantastic. He was in the defensive midfield. He can play center back. And, of course, Bill Hamid had another great game. He was part of the MLS All-Star team, which we actually aren't going to talk about, but maybe we'll talk about that in a different episode.
Mm-hmm. In terms of Americans abroad, Lyndon Gooch, we talked about him. He was on the squad for the NTC Invitational Tournament. He had 45 minutes in a friendly with Sunderland.
Yep, he went 45 minutes today, and apparently he was fantastic. That's what a lot of the fans are saying. Sunderland's Twitter account, which is actually one of the better Twitter accounts for, like, they tweet a lot about the game, the games that Sunderland's playing in. They were tweeting about him a lot, so.
Mm-hmm. Shea, of course, in the 2013 Gold Cup, played 45 minutes with Stoke. What do you think the future is for Shea?
Breck Shea, he played 45 minutes for Stoke, and he played in the 2013 Gold Cup. Yeah, he was one of Jurgen's favorite players. And, you know, hopefully he can get on track. Stoke fans seem to like him, actually. And I heard he was fantastic, like absolutely fantastic in this game. Of course, you know, we don't want to get too excited. But, you know, hopefully he can get back into the team. Last year, unfortunately, before the season, he got injured. And that against the Union, actually. But, you know, hopefully he gets back into the team and can make an impact this year.
Mm-hmm. Getty and Zelalem played with Arsenal. He's a dual national. We don't necessarily know if he's going to play for the national team, but worth talking about.
Yeah, I feel like he will. He identifies as an American, but he played for Arsenal. A lot of the Arsenal fans like him. He got some time last year. Wenger seems to like him. Arsenal fans call him the next Fabregas. So if that happens and he chooses the U.S., that would be amazing. So.
Sebastian Ledgett played a good game for West Ham.
Yeah, a lot of West Ham fans were raving about his performance, so we'll see. Hopefully he can get into the team this year. Alonso Hernandez, our striker for the U20 men's national team, last summer in the World Cup, dressed but did not play for Monterrey and Liga MX. These aren't friendlies. Liga MX started, so hopefully he can break into the team this year. I'm pretty sure he played quite a bit last year. All right, well, Connor O'Brien dressed but did not play for Odense in Denmark. He's another good central midfielder. A lot of U.S. soccer fans who know about him seem to really like him. He is 25, so I don't know if he'll break into the men's national team. I just don't see it happening. But he's one to watch. He's definitely one to watch.
Julian Green was included on the Bayern American tour. Of course, they're coming to America to play some friendlies. And Pep Guardiola said that he probably won't go on loan.
Yeah, Pep Guardiola wants to keep him around. He did this last year as well. Julian Green was supposed to go on loan to Hamburg. He nixed it. So it'll. He said nothing is set in stone, but he probably won't let him go on loan. So it's good to see Pep Guardiola have to back up Green, and hopefully he'll play for Bayern Munich this year. Also, Bayern Munich will be playing the MLS All-Stars, so it was definitely a smart thing to bring him to the U.S., market the player.
Yeah. Joe Zhao scored in Borussia Dortmund's friendly.
Yeah, we talked about him. He went to Borussia Dortmund. He scored a game winner in the 85th minute for Borussia Dortmund, and a lot of their first teamers were playing. So, Dwayne Holmes plays for Huddersfield in the Championship. He's 19 years old, dual national, USA and England. He's already committed to the USA. He said he wants to play for the USA. He kept on tweeting, "I believe," during the World Cup. So he's one to watch. He had a goal, an assist, and a 4-1 friendly win on Monday. And then Sean Parker, who I believe we talked about last time, had another goal for Augsburg, and his brother Devontae Parker, he had an injury in a friendly against Kaiserslautern. Kaiserslautern, that's right. Of course, they're dual nationals, German American. It's said that they will make their decision soon. So, and then Rubio Rubin, the under 17 and under 20 men's national team player, who a lot of American fans love, unfortunately picked up an injury. He required facial surgery, so hopefully he plays for Utrecht in the Netherlands. So hopefully he'll be able to get over that quickly.
Sebastian Ledgett assisted on a goal in West Ham's under 21.
Right, and that wasn't the game we were talking about earlier. This was a separate game he played for the U21s. Yeah. And then Danny Barbier scored some more goals for West Brom's U18 team. And then Timmy Chandler is now training with his new team, Eintracht Frankfurt. Mm-hmm. So a lot of the Americans, a lot of the World Cup players that play in Europe are still on break. Jeff Cameron, Tim Howard, I think Fabian Johnson as well. He's injured, so we'll see. And Josie Altidore, they're both injured, so we'll see. But Gus Poyet said he hopes to have Josie back in training in a couple of weeks, or in the next week. And we actually do have some more. We have some more Americans abroad, of course. Liga MX action in Norway. The Norwegian League's underway. We have 5 players in Norway. 2 played this weekend. Mix Diskerud played 90 minutes in Rosenborg's 1-0 win. And Michael Stevens, the former LA Galaxy player, played 64 minutes for Stabæk, Bob Bradley's team. So we'll hopefully Mix Diskerud leaves Norway, because I think it's actually a step below MLS, honestly. But then another player that many people are interested in Norway, Josh Gatt, still injured. Hopefully he can get back. He's a player that I saw in the U.S. national team a year ago. He played against Russia in November of 2012. He actually started that game, I believe. Could be wrong. And he was called up to the Gold Cup, but got injured, unfortunately. So he wasn't able to play in that. Michael Orozco, the center back, played for Puebla and won 1-0. They won 1-0. He played 90 minutes. Edgar Castillo made his debut for Atlas in a 0-0 draw. He played 90 minutes. Interestingly, he wears number 1 as a field player. It's pretty rare to see. Jose Torres played 68 minutes for Tigres. Hercules Gomez came off the bench for Tigres and played 16 minutes. Greg Garza played 84 minutes for Tijuana. He's a left back, young left back, a good player, but apparently didn't have a great game. He played 84 minutes and got a yellow card. And Joe Corona came off the bench and played 6 minutes for Tijuana as well. So we'll keep track of the Tijuana players, the Liga MX players as the action continues, along with MLS players and every American player abroad as the European season starts.
So going into transfer rumors now, DeMarcus Beasley is rumored to be on the Houston Dynamo soon.
This was a couple hours ago.
I think it would be a really good move for just U.S. soccer, considering he's such not a legend, but he's played in 4 World Cups.
Yep, he's a legend. It's a good move for Beasley if he goes to Houston. It's a great move for MLS, get more World Cup players. Hopefully Jermaine Jones comes back. He can play on the left wing. He can play at left back. He'll definitely help Houston make that playoff push. They always seem to get in and then start winning games under Dom Kinnear. So it's a good move. It's a good move for everyone involved. He is 32, so he has nothing left to prove at the club or international level, really. And he's coming off a great World Cup, and people will recognize him.
Jermaine Jones, who of course he wants to come back to MLS. He says he wants to get paid around $1.5 to $2 million.
Right. And he said he has shown at this World Cup that he's on the same level as Clint Dempsey and Michael Bradley. And of course, that's not the kind of money they're making, but it's still a lot more than most players. So hopefully he comes back, because he's a very marketable player. I think he'll end up at Chivas to up their value. His family's in LA. He has Eric Cubo Torres, the great 19-year-old striker, Mexican striker. He has Bocanegra behind him, the former U.S. men's national team captain. Of course, MLS bought Chivas USA, and they're looking to sell them to a new owner and to rebrand, build a new stadium. So Jermaine Jones, your face of the franchise. You got your goal scorer. You got Mauro Rosales, great veteran, great MLS veteran, and you have Bocanegra, an international. And then Dan Kennedy, the captain of the team, who's been there for a long time, good goalkeeper. So I think that'd be a great move. Another good move would be Sporting Kansas City. That would be fantastic for them. Of course, after selling Uri Rosell to Sporting Clube de Lisbon in Portugal. So hopefully he comes back to MLS. And it'll be interesting to see what happens going forward.
Xavi, the Spanish international, is the deal for him to come to New York City or the Red Bulls or whatever deal to come to MLS is off.
Yeah, for now. He said he's going to stay at Barcelona. New York City FC's reported to try to get him in January, closer to our season, to the MLS season. And I just want to go on a little bit of a rant for a moment. I've seen, this report came out and a lot of people were saying, good, we don't want to be a retirement league. Yeah, let's not take Xavi. He just played in the World Cup for Spain. He could play for 99% of the teams in the world. The only teams he couldn't get into the starting lineup for are Bayern Munich, Real Madrid, Barcelona, maybe Chelsea. I mean, I think he could play in any midfield in the world. He could go into Manchester City and play. I mean, he's better than Fernandinho. Fernandinho had an amazing season, but in my opinion, he's better. And another thing is, well, first of all, the MLS average age is less than the English Premier Leagues. So that's another thing. We do have young players coming through, but the number one thing MLS needs to do to get to the next point is to get people into the seats at the stadium and to get people watching the games on TV. And how do you do that? Big name players. Defoe, Villa, Kaká, Lampard, Xavi. You need these players.
Mm-hmm.
And
players people know.
Yeah, after you get to that point, after people start watching and people who are on the outside of MLS, who aren't really MLS fans, get reeled in and start watching the games, and then they're finally invested in the teams, they're interested, the MLS will get more revenue, and in turn they can keep their young players, they can go out and try to get these young upcoming superstars. Of course, that's years away, but the first step is to get these players. When David Beckham came over, it was huge. Bringing Defoe and Bradley and Dempsey, those were huge moves too. So it's not a bad thing to get these aging players. Villa scored 15 goals for Atletico Madrid last year. You think he can't play? Yeah. Same thing with Defoe. Defoe is not necessarily a starter for Tottenham. He should have been starting. Bradley's 26.
Mm-hmm.
So, these players still have a lot left to offer. Xavi was on the World 11 last year. They have a lot left to offer. They're not here for time. They're not, they're not here to retire. They're here to play. As Kaká said, I'm not here to retire, I'm here to win when he came to Orlando. So, yeah, sorry I ranted there, but, it needs to be said. It needs to be said. It's the first step. I understand we want to get young superstars, but we're just not there yet. We're not.
Would you like to say something?
I was going to say, speaking of Orlando City, Juan Agudelo, training with Orlando City, not going to sign there, but he's looking for a team in Europe. And, he can't, the Premier League's off the table because of his work permit problems. Hanover's off the table too, don't really know what happened to that, so.
Robinho, Brazilian international, confirms by thanking fans from AC Milan that he's moving. He didn't confirm that he's moving to Orlando City, but we do know that he's moving, which is positive.
Yeah, and apparently talks are in the advanced stages for Orlando City. So Orlando City making moves. If they can get Kaká and Robinho, it'd be good for them. And finally, the New York Daily News is reporting that 14-year-old Noah Leeds was offered a place in Sevilla's youth academy. And he's about the same age as Ben Letterman, the American for Barcelona. And, it's great that these European teams are now interested in American players, young American players.
Yeah. And for anyone, and by no means does this mean that he's going to be in the starting lineup in any World Cup.
I mean, like I've said in an episode or a couple of episodes ago, just because we have all of these young players doesn't mean they're going to become superstars or even start for their teams. But the more players you have, the higher chance you have of having one of these players. Hopefully Lyndon Gooch can do this. Hopefully some other players can do this.
Right. And on that note, we'd like to wrap up the episode. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed, hit the like button. If you did not enjoy, hit the dislike button. If you want to see more, hit the subscribe button. We'll see you next time. Be on the lookout.
Hopefully we have some moves soon.
Yeah.
Yedlin.
Yeah, we talked about it in the last episode if you want to see more on that.
All right. Thank you.
See ya.